Welcome to Seeking the Overlap, the podcast where we're creating a more connected world, one conversation at a time. I'm connection strategist, professional friend maker, and your host, Baily Hancock. Do you ever feel like you're living on autopilot, caught up in the busyness of life and disconnected from your own body? Or maybe you find yourself struggling to stay grounded and present, especially when you're overwhelmed and stressed. If any of this sounds familiar to you, you're going to love my guest today. Sophie Allison is an embodiment coach whose passion lies in helping people cultivate presence in their bodies, minds, and awareness. By combining dance and embodiment coaching, Sophie offers a felt experience that helps her clients connect more deeply with their values, breath, and true selves. In this conversation, we unpack what it means to truly practice presence, how to reconnect when you feel disassociated, and why grounding exercises can be so transformative. Sophie also shares her insights on balancing giving and receiving in relationships, the role of intuition in fostering authentic connection, and the importance of community care and vulnerability in showing up fully in our lives. You'll walk away from this episode with practical tools to help you become more embodied, present, and connected to yourself and others. So, wherever you are right now, take a moment, breathe deeply, and get ready to explore how you can turn disconnection into deep, meaningful connection. Hello, Sophie. Welcome to Seeking the Overlap.
Hi, Bailey. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. You're an embodiment coach, which I've never met one of those before, but I'm really excited to learn what that entails and see how it connects to connection. But before we get too far into that, let's start off with our segment, 3 Truths, No Lies. Are you ready?
I am ready. Yes.
Okay. Question 1. What kind of videos does your algorithm serve you?
It shows me a lot of dance videos, a lot of like pole and belly dance is a big one, a big new one, and a lot of like flowing dance. And then it also
Oh,
shows me a lot of self-improvement stuff.
that sounds like you're on a good side of the internet.
Yeah, I think so. I like it.
Okay, question 2. What's something you're proud of?
I am proud of the way that I have grown over the years. I've done a lot of work recently where I'm like focusing on my coaching business, and it's asking me to reflect on the growth that I've made to get to where I am. And when I think back to where I was when I was a teenager and like about 10 years ago, my mindset was so completely different. I felt so lonely. I felt so sad, and I didn't really know my place in the world. And then I feel very proud for the way that I have grown and how I have chosen growth over those past 10 years to be where I am now and to be in a place of knowing who I am. And beyond that, also loving who I
Oh, that is an excellent thing to be proud of. Amazing. All right, final question. What was the first CD that you ever bought?
am. The first CD I ever got was probably Avril Lavigne
Nice.
and playing Skater Boy on repeat.
2003. What a good
Yeah.
time. What a good time. Solid first choice, I have to say. Very nice. Well, thank you for playing. I feel like I know you a little bit better now. Let's get into the good stuff. I want to start by setting the groundwork for what is an embodiment coach. So, for those listening who have either never heard of the term embodiment or have heard of it but haven't really thought about what that actually means, tell us a little bit about what it means to embody something and what an embodiment coach helps people do.
Mhm. Embodiment really means that your body, your mind, your emotions, and your spirit are fully present in any given moment. And it's really the opposite to disassociation, which is where our mind and our body are in two different spaces. So embodiment is very much you are here, you are present, and you feel your whole experience that's going on. And you can be embodied through your movement or your calling or your purpose, whatever it might be. But it's really about being present and being in the experience.
Wow, that explains why I didn't know what it meant for a long time because for most of my life, I was always living in the future or disassociating from the present moment.
Yeah. And truly, like, we only ever really have the present moment. So it's about guiding people back into the present and fully being there and still having goals and still thinking about the future, but not thinking about it in terms of, oh my gosh, I'm anxious about the future. I have to prepare for it. Really being like, what can I do in the present moment? How can I be here now while still working towards those goals and recognizing the past for what it is, celebrating it, taking the lessons from it, but not ruminating on it, not regretting things from the past and living in the past.
Which is, I feel like, the lesson for so many of us to learn. I find that people either love to live in the past where they are ruminating, or they have such a deep sense of nostalgia that it is such a rose colored glasses effect on what their life had been, that it keeps them from being present and then thinking about the future. Or the people like me who tend to be very future oriented and totally missing what's happening in the here and now, which from a connection standpoint, makes it incredibly difficult to connect with people. How can cultivating presence and embodiment in our daily lives enhance the way that we connect with others, both in our intimate relationships and within our communities?
When you are embodied in the present moment and you know yourself and who you are in that moment, it has this flow on effect on your relationships and in the community. It's like, how do I feel about this connection? How can I show up very honestly and authentically in the present moment for this connection and bring my full self, bring my full awareness to what we're creating right here, right now? If you're disassociated and you're with someone and you're trying to connect, or you're like completely in the mind, there's something that doesn't quite click because you're not allowing yourself to feel what it's like to be in someone else's presence.
Mm.
And so by being embodied, you can more fully experience yourself and more fully experience the connection with the other person, or even connection to what you are doing in that moment. If, for example, dance is a really big one for me. I feel fully embodied in my dance. And if I'm focusing more on, oh, well, what did someone do on social media? And instead of on being very present in the dance, I'm not fully connecting to the dance. I'm not fully connecting to the moment. And I'm also not fully connecting to the people who might be dancing around me.
Okay, so let's go to the dance example. What does it feel like to be embodied? Is it what we think of when we think of flow state?
Yes, it can be very similar. It's like allowing flow to happen within your life to also know within the present moment that you can have flow. There's not resistance to what's happening. And so there's like flow within movement and also flow and using your intuition into what's the next best thing for me? What's the next best thing for this connection? And being present to that.
Let's talk about intuition. I feel very intuitive. A lot of my friends, I feel like, would say the same, but that could also be because we live in Los Angeles. So, for those
Mhm.
listening who are not in woo capital of the world, what does it mean to use your intuition to guide yourself in forming more genuine and meaningful connections? Like, how does intuition play in, and what does that feel like when you're in the moment? Is it, would you describe it as like a gut feeling or just a release of control? What does that feel like, or what is that experience like when you are listening and following your intuition when connecting with other people?
There can be a sense of opening within you. It's about like where the energy feels within your body. Embodiment is really like allowing yourself to feel emotions and sensations in the body. And so you can use those emotions and sensations within the body to understand your intuition better. When you can allow yourself to feel what it really feels like to feel happy, to feel sad, to feel angry, those are guides into what might be in alignment for you or what might need some change within you or within your connections. And so intuition as well, it's about the feeling the sensation within of, okay, where does my energy feel? Does it feel like when you have two options, like option A or option B, do you light up when you feel option A? Do you feel excited about it? Do you feel happy towards it? And then do you feel with option B, is it the same? Or do you feel like there's a little bit of a contraction? Is there like more of a, ooh, like maybe not that? So really listening to those like pushes and pulls of energy within yourself toward connection with people, it becomes a little bit more challenging sometimes, but you can feel into yourself. Do I feel that draw towards that person? Am I curious to learn more about that person? Are our energies compatible?
You feel like connection is possible with another person if they are not embodied.
I do think that a certain level of connection is possible with someone who's not embodied, but I would also say that the same level of connection might not be possible because they're not both fully in the present moment.
Right.
One person's dissociated and the other person might be embodied. And if the dissociated person is completely in their mind, there's only a certain level of connection that can happen.
I think about this a lot as it relates to people out there connecting, especially in networking specific scenarios. How surface level the majority of those connections end up being because people are showing up disembodied, disassociated, they're fully operating out of their mind versus any other part of their body. And so it's almost like everybody's staying incredibly surface level because when I think of embodiment now, I think of deep. I think of opposite of surface, right? It's like
Mhm.
closer in. And if you're disassociated, part of you is not there, which implies it's on the surface and or beyond, maybe totally separate. Your brain, we know this feeling. Everybody knows this feeling of like your mind is somewhere else. Like, where are you right now? Where is your mind? Oh, my mind's a million miles away. It's on this thing. And so your body's here, your mind's there. So that's actually a good way to think about disembodiment and disassociation. This is why I'm doing this podcast and why I'm writing this book, is because I feel like we're all just missing each other. We are all
Mhm.
just missing the real spark or depth of connection that can happen when both people are actually all the way there. Because so many of
Mhm.
us are not here, they're somewhere else. And I think obviously the only thing we can each do is practice this for ourselves and be as embodied and present as possible. When you work with clients, how do you help them stay present and embodied? What are some tangible tips that you can offer our listeners who are like, wait, okay, now that you're saying it, I realize perhaps I am not embodied, or the bulk of my time, my brain is somewhere and my body is separate. What's a practical first step somebody can take to start to return to themselves so that when they do go to connect with somebody else, they're there?
Mhm. One that I always come back to for both myself and for my clients is a breath practice of even just taking 2 minutes a day, but really committing to that, really committing to, I'm going to show up for myself. I'm going to show up to the connection to myself by doing this practice. And that's the thing is these practices, they're gifts to yourself. So thinking about it in that way of this is a gift to myself. I'm taking the time to be with my body. I'm taking the time to be with my breath, and I'm taking the time to be with myself. One of the practices that I love doing, like I said, is the breath. 2 minutes a day, just taking a moment to be still. And that's the thing is everyone has 2 minutes to spare. Half an hour, I understand some people are like, that's too much, but 2 minutes, you have 2 minutes. 2 minutes, sit still, maybe close the eyes. You don't have to, but really just allow yourself to feel your body and be with the breath. Breathe through it. Notice the natural breath. And then if you can start taking longer, deeper breaths and through that, feel into the sensations of the body. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now in my body? Oh, there's a little tightness in my shoulder. Ooh, oh, there feels like there's an openness in my heart, but there also feels like there's a sort of like tingling sensation in my leg. So just noticing that, clocking it, like just being like, oh, I see it. I notice it. But also not necessarily doing anything with it, just being like, hey, body, I see you. I acknowledge you. And here I am with you. Another practice that I love doing and showing and sharing is a grounding practice. So instead of sitting, maybe standing and feeling that your energy and feeling your feet on the earth and feeling into that connection that, yes, you are here on this earth right now. You belong here in this space. And then from that, breathing up through yourself, through your center, through your core, becoming tall like a tree and feeling that you not only belong on this earth, but you have dignity and strength through being here, and grow wide and grow long and grow tall, and allow the breath to cycle from all parts, from the center into the feet, into the crown. So just breathing through that. The breath is foundation into embodiment. And we don't spend a lot of time throughout our day focusing on the breath, but the breath is what we actually can really use to bring us back to the present moment.
I spent much of my life not even really breathing all the way, breathing very shallow, breathing just like always holding in my stomach, breathing very like chest up, not into my belly. And it's been such a practice to remember to breathe through my entire body instead of just up top. It's almost like I was depriving the rest of my body of that
Mhm.
attention and oxygen. And it goes back to this idea of surface versus depth. Surface feels very chest, very head, whereas depth is like all the way to your feet. And
Mhm.
I imagine my listeners, I'm not losing anybody with this because even if it feels new, I think it probably also feels true if you think about it. And I think so much of what you're talking about with embodiment to me is just about noticing. It's about pausing and being like, okay, I am here right now in this body. What is even happening outside of my head? What else is even going on? I have spent the bulk of my life hanging out up in my head and not going below my eyeballs. And as I've gotten older and become more aware of things like embodiment and dissociation and nervous system regulation and all of the things, I have realized, oh my God, I have been giving myself the smallest fragment of life because breath is life. Your body is such an integral part of your life and who you are as a person. And now that I certainly don't have a perfect and fully embodied way of living at all. I still very much hang out in my head because it's what's comfortable for me. But it's the awareness, it's the pausing to be like, oh, I'm in my head again. I need to bring it back down. And even in my practice or my work, where I teach connection centered thought leadership, the idea or the framework is education plus connection equals inspired action. And the graphics I use are a brain, a heart, and a brain and a heart hugging and running off together. I talk about the fact that yes, you need to fill people's head with important, good information. That's the education part. Then you need to move that down into their heart. That's the connection part because you can connect on, I think, a mental level for sure. But what's happening is well, your bodies are connecting. There's some kind of energy exchange there, and that happens in your body, not your head. And then if you can get both of those two things synced up, then you can inspire people to take some kind of action, whatever that action is. So
Mhm.
it's a constant practice for me. And it's what I also teach in my own way. So, speaking of balance, I know that one of the things you talk about in your work is the balance of giving and receiving. So,
Mhm.
I find that most of us are not very balanced in a lot of areas of
Mhm.
our lives, right? What impact does that balance have on helping to foster deep connections with themselves and with other people?
For a lot of my life was a people pleaser. I thought that was showing my love, but being a people pleaser often has a tendency of being an overgiver and not necessarily receiving in return. When there's an imbalance of giving and receiving, it can really lead to this eventual resentment and then this explosion of like, why aren't you giving to me in the same way I have given to you and I've given you so much? So really like coming back
Super
to this place.
unfamiliar with this concept.
So it's like coming back to you are allowed to receive, you are encouraged to receive. And by coming to this balance of giving and receiving, allowing for there to be more balance within yourself and within your connections. From that too, though, there's another part of the balance of giving and receiving, which is knowing that you can ask for your needs to be met through the connections you have, whether it's through your relationships or even your relationship to like source energy, if you're into that, knowing that your needs can be met in so many different ways. So allowing it to be this flow of energy that allows for people to be more harmonious.
Something that you said just sort of stayed with me, which is asking for what you want, even around asking yourself for what you want, right? Like feeling safe to give yourself what it is that you want and need, and not just need, but want. It's okay to want and not just need. I see it all the time with my community, with my clients, this fear of asking, this fear of daring to receive support, because there's something that we're told at some point, or maybe it's in everything we hear subtly or overtly, that says to ask for help is to be needy and annoying and a burden. When in reality, I think that's such a modern concept. The bulk of humanity has involved being in community with others and receiving support and offering it in return. This idea of mutual community care is ancient. And I think it's our modern society and culture, especially in the US, that tells us that unless you do something all by yourself with no support, then it doesn't count as much somehow, that it's cheating or you're not as impressive or exceptional if you received support. And yet that's not how it plays out at all. I always talk about the greatest athletes or performers like LeBron and Oprah. Those people have massive teams of support helping them be their great selves. Would they still be great on their own? Likely. Would they be as great? Probably not. Asking for support from your community is such an integral part of the organism, this living organism that is being a human on earth with other humans. And before you even get there, being comfortable asking yourself for the things that you want and need is step one. And that for me plays out like I'm feeling like I'm dragging today. Instead of pounding another coffee, maybe I will either lay down or maybe I'll go for a 10-minute walk and see if that re energizes me. And if I'm still feeling really sluggish after that, I need to lay down and not forcing
Mhm.
myself to push through that and be
Yes.
productive.
What you're speaking to right there is honoring where your energy is at. And that's where intuition comes in again, where it's like, where does my energy feel like today? Does it feel sluggish today? Do I feel energized so that I can like produce what I want to? And that's the thing is honoring your energy allows you to do more and excel more because you're not doing it when you're like feeling burnt out. You're not doing it when you're like, oh, I don't really like today's not the day that I'm going to produce the best things that I want to. I'm going to allow myself to rest today. I'm going to allow myself to just be today and honor where that is. And then tomorrow's a new day. Maybe I'll feel differently then. And following where that energy flow is, assessing really where your energy is and knowing it can be in flux, especially for us women with our internal cycles. You're speaking to another point too of really knowing that you can ask and you can have your needs met and you can have your desires too. As you're speaking, I was reminded how through my own journey, the asking and the knowing I had needs part in doing that was knowing I could do that with and for myself. That was the biggest part of my transformation. Like, oh, I can have needs. Like, oh, needs are a thing. Like, I have needs beyond just like shelter, water, and food. Oh, I have a need for support or a need for like rest or whatever it might be. Just acknowledging that, yes, I have those needs. And yes, I can then ask myself for that first. And then I can ask my connections and my community I really do agree with you in the way that in the US, particularly, there's such a focus on the individualistic approach to things and that pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. It's such an integrated saying into the US, when really we're this collaboration, we're this collective. And I loved one of the points you were saying in one of your other podcasts of community, connection, and collaboration.
The three
And
C's to
it
saving
really,
humanity.
they really are. It's allowing yourself to be a part of that community and be a part of that collaboration and knowing that, yes, you will get farther and with the support of others. Humans would not survive if they were by themselves. So if you leave a baby by itself, they are not going to be surviving. We need others to even get to the point where we are now, just acknowledging how many people supported you in getting to where you are. Your friends through a conversation, or your teachers through teaching you something, or even if it's a small thing, or just different people feeding you at different points of your life. Like that's all support that you've received throughout your life. And it might not come from the people that you wanted or expected to, but it still comes to you. Acknowledging that when you need support at various times, it has been there for you at times. That was a big part in my journey too. And in recent years, realizing that I am here today because of all the support I've received, whether it's now or even like my ancestors into making me who I am today, and for their sacrifices, for their successes, for their beingness to create the environment that we are here in now.
Yeah, you couldn't do it alone even if you wanted to. That's not how we're set up. Literally, physically, mentally, emotionally, like it's just no matter what your beliefs are, we are all so inextricably bound to one another that the sooner you can lean into that and trust that is true, the sooner you will start to feel less alone. Isolation and disconnection and loneliness comes from the inaccurate thought that you could ever be alone because it's actually not possible. You can feel alone, but that's a lie. It's just not true. The thing is, though, you have to open yourself up to being supported by the people around you. This is why you hear the advice of if you're feeling lonely, go volunteer, go join a community, go be part of something around other humans, because you realize very quickly that our problems are not unique to us. Our fears are not unique to us. We all have the same capacity to feel all the same feelings. We just have different experiences of them. The more you
Right?
can talk to other people and be in community with other people and get to the core of what is important and what is on your heart and your mind, the more you'll realize that we are this cohesive, large collaboration. We're all just playing different roles, but we are all bound to one another in one way or another.
I really like that you pointed out too that we all experience the same feeling. We might have different experiences in life to get where we are, and we are completely different people and have different trajectories. But really, we're all humans, and we also all have that same capacity for that range of emotion that we have if we allow ourselves to feel it. And that's so key too, is not just intellectualizing feeling, but actually feeling the feeling. And through that, also being connected in community when you have feelings can be so powerful because you can be seen and witnessed and heard in that emotion. And other people are like, hey, I know that feeling too. And a big feeling that can be so vulnerable to share in community, but can be also so transformational with feeling it through community is shame.
Yes.
Yeah. Cause we all have it. And the thing is, it can be so taboo almost for us to talk about our shame, to feel our shame. But when you're like, I have this shameful thing that I feel right now, and you actually share it with someone and they see you and then they're like, hey, like, actually, I've experienced that same thing and I didn't want to say it because I felt shame. but it can be a really connective piece.
Yes, my guest, David Robson from episode 3, talked about a study where people shared things that they felt shameful about and how it actually did not repel the person they shared it with. It brought them closer
Mhm,
because that's what vulnerability is, laying bare the things that feel really scary for you to share with others out of fear of rejection, right? That's what we're all afraid of is if we share this thing and people know the truth about us, then we will be rejected. It's almost like every decision humans make is from that place of fear of being rejected. If you shine the light on shame or what you're feeling really vulnerable about and let people see all of you, then it gives them the opportunity to show you who they are and potentially show you that they are just like you or they know that feeling, but in a different way. Right. It's like we talked about, we all have the same feelings and emotions, different experiences that cause them. And what I think is so interesting, the older I get and the more I'm transparent about the things that I am vulnerable about or feel shameful about, the more I realize that so much of what we're feeling is universal. And the things that I'm shameful about aren't anything for somebody else, right? Like the same thing could
mhm.
happen to two people. In one person, it manifests as feeling a sense of shame about it. The other, it rolls right off their back and they don't even stop and think about it. So much of the insecurities we have and the fears we have are so personal to us, but
Mhm.
we assume that if we think it's awful or embarrassing or whatever, that everybody will feel the same. But it's just perspective, right? We all have different
Yeah.
perspectives. And I think that's one of the things that you have to understand when connecting with others is that we can't possibly know what perspective the other people around us are going to have on something. And to even make the assumption is a waste of time because it could depend on the moment and what happened right before that situation. I can't come into a conversation with you assuming anything about how you're going to take anything that I say. I can only show up and be as truthful and honest about my thoughts on something or my own perspective on something, and then pause and wait to see how you're going to receive it and return. Too often we're doing the thing where we're in our head about what you're in your head about what we're in. It's just many layers that we are putting between
Mhm.
you and the other person that ultimately cause friction with that connection. It's like pouring a bunch of concrete between you and another person, then being like, okay, go ahead and hug each other. We got to trudge through all this slog before we can
Mhm.
actually reach each other. Or you could just let the path be clear and just let the chips fall where they may and recognize that even if the other person does not receive whatever you tell them in the way that you hope they will, that in itself is information. And you're not supposed to connect with everybody, and that's okay. But you better connect with yourself because you're stuck with you.
Yes, I so agree with that. You have to connect with yourself and really to talk to those points that you brought up of that fear of rejection and that not like connecting with self and then coming into the mind of what do you think of me? Like all that. For a lot of people, there is a fear of rejection or a fear of abandonment. And that's like this I'm separate from the community. They'll reject me if they find out that I'm not worthy. And the not worthiness part is the biggest part for most people. I didn't feel worthy for a really long time in my own life. Coaching and my own practices helped me to realize you are always worthy. And because you are always worthy, you actually cannot really be rejected. When you're always worthy and you step into that and you step into being embodied, you step into your own truth. When there's a connection and there's a potential there, and then it ends up being like, well, maybe we're not meant to connect. That is not a rejection, it's a redirection. When you have someone's no, try and take it as a gift. Thank you for telling me where my energy doesn't belong.
Yes.
Because I know myself, I know my worth, I know my truth, and I'm going to share it from that space. And if you can't accept me in my truth, I'm not for you.
Right. And you're saving both of you time. You see it with dating. People are often trying to put on this performance and be who they think the other person wants them to be. But you are delaying the inevitable being the realization that this is not a fit. And I honestly think that the sooner you can be yourself in every scenario, the quicker you will actually be able to find your people and they will find you. And I'm telling you, the connections I have that are based on the truthiest truth of both of us are the deep ones. They are the ones that are lasting forever because they're based on the facts. They're not based on this surface level nonsense. And look, not every connection is going to be a soul connection, and that is okay too. But it is on you to do your part in showing up fully present, fully embodied, and telling the truth, which to me, being authentic equals telling the truth. That's what that means. And I know authenticity is a word that's tossed around a lot, and sometimes it can be like, what does that even mean? And I think it's telling the truth, both to yourself and to other people, so that you all can identify whether you're for each other or if you should move on and find somebody else. And that's in personal relationships, professional relationships, romantic relationships. Doesn't matter. Relationships are relationship is a relationship. So I think that's the main thing that I want to leave our listeners with today. Is there anything else you really want them to know and be thinking about as we wrap up today?
I want all the listeners to really know that just how worthy they are, just how inherently worthy they are, that they don't need to do anything else other than be themselves and take the moment to really be with themselves, to know what their values are, know what their desires are, know themselves at their core, and from that space, connect with others because you are always worthy. You are always worthy.
I can always hear that because I forget all the time. And it's probably the most important takeaway that any of us can hear. Like, you're good right now. You are worthy. You don't have to do a damn thing. So,
Yep.
thank you, Sophie. Thank you for your work in the world, for sharing everything you did today with our listeners and with me. And I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Bailey. Thank you so much for this opportunity and for asking so many good, deep questions. I have really enjoyed connecting with you.
It's my favorite thing to do. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Seeking the Overlap. I would be so grateful if you would take a second to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help others discover the show. And if you share this episode on social, be sure to tag me at Baily Hancock so I can send you some love. Until next time, happy connecting.